And we are up and running. It is another adventure here with the Miracle Within. And we are examining A Course in Miracles. And I'm going to tread water here for a couple of seconds, waiting for some people to show up. But nonetheless, we are recording episode 5 of The Miracle Within. And that's really, the title of this is all about the truth. The truth is that everything that is happening within us, and especially within the realm of the mind. So once we're able to actually look at that, it makes things a lot easier. And I see that people are starting to show up here. That's great. Good evening, and hope you're ready for this next little jaunt into A Course in Miracles. Last week, if you'll remember from the text, we had launched into chapter 2, and we were talking about the origin of this illusion of separation. The separation never actually occurred, but once we had that idea that we might be able to separate ourselves from God, it created this amazing phenomenon, which I guess you could call it the Big Bang, where everything exploded into being. And as Jesus says in the text of the Course, everything here is fractured, so that there is a sense of separation, the sense of objectification, when in truth we live in a state where everything is a unified whole. And a lot of the old tribal peoples had a sense of this. There is mystery schools in the Native American community, the Aboriginal community, the ancient Celts were very much aware of it. All of the old traditional tribal philosophies were based on the recognition of the oneness, the circle of life. Life is encompassed in one state of being, and that we are intimately joined with not only each other, but with every living thing in the universe. So it's actually a very beautiful concept. And once we start to look at the world through that lens, it becomes a lot easier for us to back off from attacking each other and from dividing and conquering and from all the other ills of modern society. This linear society has got its perks, but it also has some serious drawbacks. It reinforces that idea of separation. So if you have a strong connection to your own ancestral roots, if you're Celtic, Irish or Scottish, or if you have Nordic ancestry or Native American ancestry, go back and examine some of the philosophies. Do a little research, and you'll discover that your ancestors were very much aware of many of the ideas that are being presented to us in A Course in Miracles. The brilliance of the Course is that it has consolidated everything beautifully. So we've got Eastern philosophy, Western philosophy, tribal consciousness, all of the different threads of the truth of our existence, very nicely laid out in the text as well as in the lessons of Course in Miracles. And I do have to encourage you to a journey on your own of the daily lessons, because you will find that it is very, very much a mind-altering journey. And so you will be thrust into a much different level of consciousness than what you are currently experiencing. So to pick up with chapter 2 here, I'm going to skip down a little bit, because last week we were looking at that concept of how we believe that we have separated ourselves from each other and from God, but that is simply an illusion. So as we go down further in the text, it says the Garden of Eden, or the pre-separation condition, was a state of mind in which nothing was needed. Now imagine that kind of an existence where you are sustained in everything that you need. And imagine living in a state of grace where the idea of need never even occurs to you. But this is what we left behind when we decided that we wanted to run away and play outside of the presence of our Creator. And needless to say, it created a whole series of domino effects that we're trying to learn how to resolve. And the journey to resolution is simply one of surrender and release. But that can be very hard to do, especially without insight and support from that higher source, from the Christ within us. So going forward, it says, when Adam listened to the lies of the serpent, all he heard was untruth. And we were given that imagery in the Old Testament in the state of fall, where Adam ate from the tree of the knowledge. Now, this is where it happens, is in the mind. The mind is what contains knowledge and thrives on knowledge, seeks knowledge. So when Adam ate of the fruit of the tree of the awareness of good and evil, the knowledge of good and evil, that particular moment was a major spark in proliferating the illusion of separation. It says, all that can literally disappear, and all that, the illusion, can literally disappear in the twinkling of an eye, because it is merely a misperception. What is seen in dreams seems to be very real. Just think about that, how appropriate that statement is. I mean, last night or 2 nights ago or 6 weeks ago, you had one of those dreams where you woke up sweating, or you woke up thrilled, or you woke up hungry, but it seemed very real when you were in the dream. And that's what this life is. This life, this existence, is the dream that we created or co-created with ourselves, with our community of mankind. What is seen in dreams seems to be very real, yet the Bible says that a deep sleep fell upon Adam, and nowhere is there reference to his waking up. The world has not yet experienced any comprehensive reawakening or rebirth. Such a rebirth is impossible as long as you continue to project or miscreate. It still remains within you, however, to extend as God extended his spirit to you. In reality, this is your only choice, because your free will was given you for your joy in creating the perfect. That sounds kind of odd, and so again, we have to stop and try to figure out exactly what it is that's being presented to us here. The idea of creation, as in the last episode that we looked at, was the extension of self, because God is totality. So when God creates, God has nothing to reference except God. So what does God create? God creates God over and over and over again. And we are God within God. This is how it works. And we have that same gift, our ability to extend the God within us, to extend life, to extend love, to extend that state of perfection. And what we have been doing is we have been miscreating, in that we have been going after desires and going after the needs of the ego, going after the agenda of the ego. So the Course is very clear early on that the real journey is a journey of stepping back in to our foundation, our fundamental truth. And that is that we are, number one, life, because God is life itself. So, and again, this goes back to those ideas about any idea of separation. If you could actually separate yourself from God, you'd be separating yourself from life. So you would cease to exist. Number two, the extension that we're talking about here, being the extension of our divinity, of the God within ourselves, is love. And love is an active force. People misunderstand love. They think it's a biological reaction. They look at the idea of love and think that it's, has something to do with the urge to rut in the forest like the animals. And nothing could be further from the truth. The truth of love is that it is unconditional support and acceptance of everyone and everything around you. So when we actually experience love on that level of our own inner truth, there is this ecstatic thing that happens. We join in the very joy of life. We commune in the very joy of our existence as God in expression, as God within God within God. And that goes into eternity because God knows no boundaries. God is limitless. And a lot of these ideas are hard to hold on to because we are so conditioned by a world that is set up and structured around the idea of beginnings and endings. And so even in the most fundamental way, when you go out and look up at the stars at night and somebody says, yeah, it's endless out there, your mind really can't work that idea out. The mind just goes into kind of a gray zone and says, oh yeah, it's endless out there, whatever that is. So we have really conditioned ourselves to limitation. And the first reflection of that is the idea of self. We're contained within this body. This body is our existence. This body is our protector. This body is our identity. And then as we developed different levels of our belief about an identity, our ego, we attach that to the body. So it gets kind of ugly in some ways when you stop and think about it, because it's just confining on one level, where we're limiting ourselves to all of these different needs and different desires. And on the other level, the mind is fractionating everything that it gets in touch with. So you've got the mind that is continuing this process of division. It's like when you were in college and you were fractionating rats' brains in biology too. You're taking a thin slice off with each fractionation. And that's what the mind is happiest or is most likely to desire to become engaged in. We're always analyzing, always creating separation. So the course early on is pointing out these things that we are doing that is unconscious. We're not aware of the fact that all of these processes are going on in the realm of the mind, and it becomes a seduction. So it causes us to fall deeper into that idea of having fallen asleep at that earliest stage where we tried to separate ourselves from God and created the illusion of separation, created the dream that we are currently experiencing. So as it goes on to say, you can defend truth as well as error. The means are easier to understand after the value of the goal is firmly established. It is a question of what is it for. So all of these things that we're trying to support, we're trying to make real, we have to question, why are we doing this? What is it that's causing us to try and support this illusion, to keep it going, to keep perpetrating it? The real questions are, what do you treasure and how much do you treasure it? Once you have learned to consider these questions and to bring them into all your actions, you will have little difficulty in clarifying the means. The means are available whenever you ask. So we're being told here that if we're willing to ask higher consciousness, the Christ within us, the Holy Spirit, we will get the answers to what it is that we cherish. It'll be blown out of proportion. It'll become super large. It'll be so obvious that we can't overlook it. And that's the journey of the Course, is to be able to identify where we have placed our value. And is that value something that is sustainable? So look at the world around you. How many people croak and leave, a pile of treasure for their relatives and their children and for the government and for their charities? But they go back, they leave this world just as they came into it, with no material attachments. So when we're looking at the things we treasure, if we're treasuring all of these physical items, the big bank account, the great car, the prestige and the honor of being, a president or a potentate or some kind of an important person, then our treasure is going to abandon us at some point in our existence. And it's going to probably abandon us in a very harsh way. It's going to leave a sting. It's going to leave a rug burn. But if we start to shift our awareness of the truth of what has value in our lives, then all of a sudden we're starting to see something occur that we have taken for granted in the past. And the first thing is our value of our relationship with ourselves, because we begin to awaken to the idea that I'm divinity. My God, look at that. I am this magnificent expression of God, and I am so intimately integrated with God that I am the Father, I am God, am one. So that's the first great value system that gets shifted. And then the second one is looking at everybody around you and realizing, holy crap, I'm seeing God everywhere I look. And just imagine the joy that begins to become a normal part of your day as you look more deeply into this realm of where your values are, because you will begin to cherish the beauty and the sacredness in all of your relationships. Even if it's a casual relationship, you pass somebody on the street, and if you're in a state of acceptance, you will recognize that oneness. You will recognize yourself in the other person. You will recognize God in both. And that is clearly a much higher and much more profound value than the mere acquisition of sensational experience and of transitory wealth or transitory poverty. We create both aspects of that theme. We, in one lifetime, come in and we're king of the mountain. Next lifetime, we're in India as an untouchable living in the gutter. So all of these different components are part of what the Course, early on in the text as well as in the lessons, causes us to stop and address, causes us to stop and look at. So that's kind of the introduction for this evening's dialogue here. And now we're going to shift over, because we've been looking at the lessons. We've gotten up to lesson number 8. And as we're doing the lessons, we're starting to unhinge our mind's preoccupation with the past and its fear or anticipation of the future. And present-mindedness, living in this moment, is the utmost foundation of what the Course presents to us. It is a thought system. It is a type of psychotherapy where we are taking our mind, which is very, very fractured and very, very disordered, very wounded because of this idea of separation. And we're reformatting the way it operates. We're giving it new instructions. It's like a computer. What we're doing is we're looking at the mind and saying, okay, we need to narrow the spectrum down so that we're not always living yesterday and failing to live in the moment. So, pardon me, getting kind of dry here. It has been a beautiful day. And I was outside and I got a little bit dehydrated there. So, nonetheless, we will trudge on here. The last couple of lessons, 6 and 7, were really putting a strong emphasis on the idea that everything that we reference is because of our experience of it in the past. Lesson number 8, which we're looking at today, says, my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. And this is a pretty juicy lesson, although all of the first dozen lessons really have a lot of context to them. They are meaty. And this one definitely falls into that category. It says this idea is, of course, the reason why you see only the past. It's because your mind is still playing out the experience of the past. See? So as you're looking at a book, looking at a television screen, looking at an object around you, your mind automatically goes back to the last time that it experienced that object. It says no one really sees anything. He sees only his thoughts projected outward. The mind's preoccupation with the past is the cause of the misconception about time from which your seeing suffers. See, so our seeing, our perception in this physical world suffers because the mind conditions us to see everything as it is referenced in the past. Your mind cannot grasp the present, which is the only time there is. It therefore cannot understand time and cannot, in fact, understand anything. And really that is the thing that you start to recognize as you continue to advance with these lessons, is that all of your life you had all these beliefs and notions and ideas about the world that you inhabited. And in truth, nothing, literally none of the things that you believed to be true or that you cherished dearly are 100% valid. So we have all, by falling into the sleep, falling into this dream cycle, we have allowed ourselves to experience insanity to one degree or another. There are some people around us that are obviously really off the rails, and then there are those of us who are beginning to recognize, hey, the world I'm seeing doesn't make sense, and that must mean that my mind is not making sense out of it. So again, it goes back to the idea of psychotherapy. We are getting the mind to pay attention in these early lessons so that we can start to give it some kind of proper conditioning, some kind of capacity to address the immediate needs, the immediate concerns, the immediate experiences that are going on in our lives. It continues with the one holy true thought one can hold about the past is that it is not there. And this is a brilliant example of how truth is so stark when you compare it to all of the jumbled up activities that we engage in throughout the day. All of this referencing the past is referencing nothingness. And the only thing that we're carrying along with us are either the fantasies of a high or fantasies of a low. Fantasies of wanting more, which is, you know, that thing that projects us into the future. 3 days from now, I want another sack of donuts that were as good as the ones that I had 3 days ago. Or else it brings up the things from the past that caused us fear and misery and frustration and enmity and bitterness. So really, by allowing ourselves to live in this skewed perception of reality, what we have to do is realize that we've got to let go of the illusion of the past, because it never really happened. It's not there. And you cannot go back in time and fix the past except to forgive it, to release it. And every time that you, in the process of your prayer and your meditation stances, and when you're poising for, that stillness, to attain that stillness, one of the most important parts of the process is to release, release, release. Ask the Holy Spirit, ask the Christ within to help you release your attachment to all of these things that you thought happened. And that will cause you to shift into this moment right here, right now. That's where you're going to begin to experience life. It goes on to say the purpose of the exercises for today is to begin to train your mind to recognize when it is not really thinking at all. Mind chatter, all the babble that's always going on. How often do you stop and actually observe all this lunacy that's going on inside the context of your mind? And so the lessons are giving us an avenue to address this. They're taking us down a path where all that brain chatter will eventually start to calm down, and we won't be listening to all of this garbage that we endure, that we engage, that we actually cultivate 24 hours a day. Because even when you're sleeping, part of the brain is still churning away, and you wake up in the morning and you think, wow, I could stand another 4 hours of sleep. That's partly because your brain didn't fully shut down. Your mind did not fully release all of this turmoil that's always going on. So it says, while thoughtless ideas preoccupy your mind, the truth is blocked. See, so that's, again, a defense mechanism. We're blocking the truth that we are divinity by engaging in all of this brain chatter about how you got knocked into a mud puddle by the bully when you were in third grade. You're still holding on to that, and you're 52 years old. It's like, what the hell's wrong with you? Get over it. Let go of this bullshit. We have to live now in order to experience life itself. The fundamental essence of life is in the now. So, recognizing that your mind has been merely blank rather than believing that it is filled with real ideas is the first step to opening the way to vision. And see, the mind is so engaged with this idea of sight. We are so addicted to seeing everything that's going on around us. And we're really not seeing truth. We're just seeing remnants of the past. We're just seeing memories going on over and over and over again. And it's absurd, really, when you stop and think about it. And as you draw yourself into this moment, all of a sudden, things begin to open up. And you're seeing beyond what the eyes can see. And that's a beautiful state to arrive at. And it will happen if you will work with these lessons. All of a sudden, you begin to get this subtle sense of a glow around the people that you're talking to. You get this subtle sense of being able to see beyond just the realm of what your eyes are revealing to you. You begin to be able to pick up that magnificent spark of vision, so that you are seeing the truth in the people, in the objects, in the animals, in the plants. You arrive at a plateau where you're seeing how all life is magical, and it is filled with light, and it is fully integrated. So this is what you can expect as you continue to advance with A Course in Miracles. And we are winding down now at the end of a half hour. It looks like we've got some people online here. not sure what, Mary McCullum, it says, pardon me, but what book are you referring to? I'm referring to A Course in Miracles. Previous to that, when I was referring to biblical passage, it was in Genesis where Adam fell into the sleep, if that's what you're asking about. Anyway, I do appreciate everybody that showed up for this evening's journey, and get out there and share the love, pass the love around. We will re-engage in 1 week, and we'll look at the next lesson, lesson number 9. We'll continue with the text. If you have anything that you want me to address specifically, definitely shoot me an email. And I do have a website. It is devoted entirely to A Course in Miracles, and that website is The Miracle Within, all one word, .org. So, as I said before, share the love and enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll see you in 1 week.